The unthinkable is happening. The U.S. tourism industry, a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse, is collapsing, and it's happening faster than anyone expected. As global travel resumes, American tourism has found itself under siege. Countries around the world are turning their backs on American tourists, and some are even making it harder to visit the U.S. at all. What's causing this sudden shift? Rising tariffs, tense political climates, and a growing global distrust of U.S. policies have left travelers with a bitter taste. In fact, the WTTC projects a 22.5% decline in international visitor spending to the U.S. in 2025, marking a significant downturn in the tourism sector. If you thought America's dominance in tourism was untouchable, think again. Let's dive into the 10 countries that are destroying America's travel industry, and why it's about to get even worse. Number 10, Italy. Italy has always been a go-to destination for American tourists. Rome, Venice, Florence, you name it. But in 2025, the warm Italian welcome is starting to fade for U.S. visitors. Why? Because Italy has implemented new regulations and taxes that directly target American travelers. According to Travel + Tour World, U.S. tourism in Italy dropped by 12% in 2025, and it's all tied to these new restrictions. Italy is not just raising taxes on American visitors, they're also introducing regulations that limit American tourists' ability to access popular sites like the Colosseum and the Vatican. These new measures are part of a broader European movement to curb mass tourism, which many see as a growing burden on local communities and resources. And let's not forget that protests in Italy have been increasingly focused on American tourists, with Italians expressing frustration over the overwhelming presence of foreign visitors. This is a wake-up call. If Italy, one of the world's top tourism destinations, is taking such drastic steps, what does it mean for the future of global tourism? Number 9, Denmark. Denmark's beauty has long attracted American tourists, from the scenic canals of Copenhagen to the fairy tale charm of Odense. But in 2025, Denmark is tightening its borders for U.S. visitors. According to Reuters, U.S. tourism to Denmark is projected to fall by 8% this year due to new visa restrictions that have been introduced in response to growing anti-U.S. sentiment and concerns over the environmental impact of mass tourism. These new regulations make it more difficult for Americans to simply pack a bag and visit Denmark's iconic sites, with higher visa fees and longer processing times. This is not just about paperwork, it's part of a bigger cultural shift. Protests in Denmark against U.S. foreign policy have made it clear that the American tourist dollar isn't as welcome as it used to be. This isn't a one-off issue. Denmark is part of a growing trend in Europe where the influx of U.S. tourists is being seen as unsustainable. The Danish government is now turning to other regions to attract more environmentally conscious travelers, signaling a shift away from the U.S. As the door to Denmark closes, the ripple effect is clear. This change will likely influence other countries to reconsider their relationship with U.S. tourism. Number 8, Sweden. Sweden, a nation known for its stunning landscapes, progressive culture, and high quality of life, has long been a favorite for American tourists. But in 2025, Sweden is following in Denmark's footsteps and implementing stricter visa restrictions for U.S. citizens. Travel + Tour World reports that Sweden is reducing the number of American tourists allowed into the country by 15%. As part of its broader efforts to cut down on mass tourism. Sweden's decision to cut back on U.S. visitors stems from a combination of political and environmental factors. Anti-American sentiment in Europe, fueled by protests and dissatisfaction with U.S. policies, has made American tourists less welcome. The Swedish government is also under pressure to protect its natural resources and reduce the carbon footprint caused by tourism, which has led to tighter entry requirements for non-European tourists. The drop in American tourism to Sweden has already been felt in major cities like Stockholm, where U.S. visitors have traditionally been a significant portion of the tourism market. The new rules are expected to hurt U.S. tourism revenues by over $1 billion in 2025 alone. This is a clear sign that Sweden is positioning itself away from American tourists in favor of more sustainable travel. With the Swedish government turning its attention elsewhere, American tourists can no longer take their Swedish getaway for granted. Number 7, Japan. Japan has always been a dream destination for American tourists. Its mix of ancient traditions and modern innovations has captivated travelers for years. But in 2025, Japan is making it harder for Americans to visit. According to Travel + Tour World, U.S. tourism in Japan is projected to decline by 10% this year, due to new travel restrictions and visa delays that have been put in place for American visitors. What's driving this shift? It's a combination of growing political tensions between the US and Japan, along with Japan's desire to focus more on regional tourism. Japan has tightened visa approval processes, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for US citizens to gain entry. This isn't just about bureaucracy. It's about Japan positioning itself to favor tourists from other regions, particularly Asia and Europe. In addition, Japan's government is addressing concerns over tourism and environmental sustainability. With the 2020 Tokyo Olympics now a distant memory, Japan is looking to reduce the influx of foreign tourists, particularly from the US. The economic impact of this shift is significant, with an expected $5 billion loss in tourism revenue from the US by the end of 2025. As Japan closes its doors to American visitors, the broader implications for the travel industry are becoming clear. America's dominance in global tourism is no longer guaranteed. Number 6. United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has long been one of the US's closest allies and a top destination for American tourists, thanks to its rich history, iconic landmarks, and vibrant culture. But in 2025, the UK is starting to turn its back on American tourists. Visa fees have increased, and entry requirements are becoming stricter. According to AP News, the UK has seen a 6% drop in US visitors so far this year, and with new policies in place, that trend is expected to continue. So, what's behind this shift? Rising anti-American sentiment, particularly in response to US political decisions, has made American tourists less welcome. Protests in London and other major cities have amplified the message. US tourists are no longer a priority. The UK government is now prioritizing European and Asian visitors over Americans. This decline in US tourism is already being felt in major tourism hubs like London, where US citizens once made up a significant portion of international visitors. The British tourism industry is expected to lose around $3 billion in revenue from American tourists by the end of 2025. The UK's decision to limit US tourism signals a changing relationship between the two nations and a shift in how countries perceive American travelers. Number 5. China. For decades, China has been a major destination for American tourists, drawn to its rich history, cultural landmarks, and rapidly developing cities. But 2025 has brought a shocking change. As US-China relations continue to deteriorate, China has implemented strict travel restrictions on US citizens. Travel and Tour World reports that US tourism to China has dropped by 15% in 2025, with visa applications for American citizens facing lengthy delays and increased scrutiny. What's driving this shift? Tensions between the two countries have escalated over trade wars and political differences, and China is now tightening its borders as part of its broader effort to limit American influence. Additionally, China's government is focusing more on attracting tourists from countries that align more closely with its geopolitical interests. The economic impact of these restrictions is significant. U.S. tourism revenues in China are expected to decline by over $7 billion in 2025. For many American tourists, the Great Wall, the Forbidden City, and other Chinese landmarks will be out of reach due to these new barriers. China's growing reluctance to welcome American tourists is a stark reminder of how geopolitical tensions can reshape global travel patterns. Number 4. Mexico. Mexico has long been a favorite destination for U.S. tourists, with its beautiful beaches, rich culture, and proximity to the U.S. But in 2025, Mexico has implemented new travel restrictions for American citizens. According to AP News, Mexico has seen a 5% drop in U.S. tourism this year, as the Mexican government enforces stricter visa regulations and entry requirements. The shift in Mexico's tourism policy comes as a result of rising anti-American sentiment and growing nationalism. Protests have erupted in major cities, with many Mexicans calling for a reduction in U.S. influence. The government is responding by making it more difficult for Americans to visit, particularly in popular tourist destinations like Cancun and Mexico City. In addition to political factors, Mexico is also focusing on developing tourism markets in other regions. The country is looking to attract more visitors from Asia and Europe, and as a result, American tourists are being pushed to the back burner. With U.S. tourism in Mexico projected to lose over $2 billion by 2025, this shift will have a major impact on the travel industry. Number 3. France. When you think of France, you probably imagine the Eiffel Tower, charming cafes, and beautiful vineyards. But in 2025, France is starting to close its doors to U.S. tourists. With rising anti-American sentiment, the French government has introduced new travel restrictions for American citizens. According to Travel and Tour World, U.S. tourism in France is down by 12% in 2025, as new visa policies and entry requirements have been enacted to limit the number of American visitors. Protests in Paris and other cities have made it clear that many French citizens are fed up with the influx of American tourists. The government is responding by imposing higher visa fees and restricting access to popular tourist destinations. For U.S. visitors, the charm of France is becoming harder to reach. This shift in policy is also driven by concerns over the environmental impact of mass tourism. The French government is now focused on making tourism more sustainable and prioritizing visitors from other regions, particularly Europe and Asia. The projected loss in tourism revenue from the U.S. is estimated to be over $5 billion by the end of 2025. As France closes its doors to American tourists, it's a clear sign that the travel landscape is changing, and U.S. tourists are no longer as welcome as they once were. Number 2. Germany. Germany, with its rich history, beautiful landscapes, and vibrant cities, has always been a favorite for U.S. travelers. But in 2025, the trend is reversing. According to Reuters, U.S. tourism to Germany has declined by 10%, with new travel restrictions in place for American visitors. These restrictions include longer visa processing times and stricter entry requirements. The shift in policy is largely driven by political factors, with growing anti-American sentiment in Germany in response to U.S. foreign policies. The German government is also focusing on sustainability, prioritizing visitors from other regions, particularly Asia and Europe. This means fewer Americans will be able to enjoy Germany's iconic attractions. The projected loss in tourism revenue from the U.S. is expected to be over $3 billion by the end of 2025. For American tourists, this signals a changing dynamic in global tourism. Germany's decision to limit U.S. tourism is a stark reminder of the shifting global travel landscape, and it raises the question, will other countries follow suit? Number 1. Canada. Canada, America's closest neighbor, has officially thrown a wrench into the U.S. tourism machine. In 2025, Canada has announced a complete ban on American tourists. Citing growing diplomatic tensions, security concerns, and rising anti-American sentiment, Canada is preparing to lose a projected $12 billion in tourism revenue from U.S. citizens by the end of the year, according to AP News. Canada, once the ultimate American getaway, is now officially distancing itself from U.S. tourists. From the stunning landscapes of Vancouver to the vibrant culture of Toronto, Canada has long been a top choice for American travelers. But now, that relationship has come to an abrupt halt. For Americans, this means no more easy access to one of the U.S.'s closest allies. The economic fallout is significant. Canada's decision to ban American tourists will have ripple effects across the travel industry, with projected losses in tourism revenue reaching unprecedented levels. This marks a dramatic shift in how countries view U.S. tourism, and Canada is leading the way. If this video opened your eyes, it's time to take action. Subscribe, like, and share this video with anyone who needs to know just how much America's travel industry is changing. Because the truth is, these countries aren't just making headlines, they're reshaping the global travel landscape. Stay tuned for more updates that will keep you ahead of the game. Thanks for watching.